What is up, YouTube? Troking here. Welcome back to Draw Phase, and in today's video we have an anti-deck bound to take down those Master Yi and Kai'Sa decks running rampant on tournaments as we've seen lately. But before we get into the video, if you haven't already, please subscribe. You automatically enter yourself to win a Proving Grounds box set once we reach 500 subscribers. So definitely click a button and try to win something. So let's get into the deck list. Now, yes, so let's just talk about Kai'Sa and Master Yi, right? People are saying like, oh, they're too strong. They're in such high percentage of the tournaments are starting to become a little boring, but I see that as a challenge. In my history of playing TCGs in Yu-Gi-Oh, in Magic the Gathering, much earlier with Pokemon, I saw it as always as a challenge to take down those top meta decks. So it's actually a lot of fun for me, right? Like I don't think it's like necessarily healthy that like all the tournaments are just like like a large percentage of the tournaments or Master Yi and Kai'Sa. But me personally, I'm just like, all right, let's make something that takes down those decks, right? And I was messing around a little bit with Annie Darkchild. All right, so let's take a look at the legend. Pretty strong legend ability. At the end of your turn, ready 2 runes. So it's like a mini Sona, but a legend that just will always happen no matter what. So obviously, Fury and Chaos, domains, red and purple. Strong colors, by the way, strong colors. For runes, we're running a clean 6 and 6. Nothing too crazy about that. For battlefields, we are running Zon Warrens. Now, the point of this deck, right, is to take care of your opponent's hand, right? We are running inverted timelines as the bread and butter, right? We are running some Rasas, so we benefit from discarding cards. So Zon Warrens helps to tailor to that. Like when you conquer here, discard 1, then draw a card. We want to make sure our hand is perfectly set up for invert timelines, right? And we also need a little bit of information from that top deck. From the first 2 cards in Candlelit Sanctum, right? So when you conquer here, look at the top 2 cards of your main deck. You may recycle one or both of them, put those you don't back in any order. If you conquer Candlelit Sanctum, right, and you're looking at the top 2 cards of your deck, right, and it's pieces that you need, then by all means leave them there, right, before you cast Inverted Timelines. If it's something you don't need, right, then just recycle them, and then you have a better chance of getting those pieces that you need for the certain combos we have going here, for the little bit of aggressiveness, and for a little bit of controlling aspect to the deck. You'll see in the gameplay coming up, it was very good, very consistent, very fast, punished the opponent for having a large hand, and I think this is what exactly is really good going against like a Master Yi or Kai'Sa, right? Because Kai'Sa is really, really good at drawing cards, right? Like their card advantage needs to be put to a stop, and I think Invert Timelines is just one of those cards because they have no trash resurgence, right? There's nothing that they can dig into the trash or grab back from it. So once it's in the trash, it's in the trash, and there's nothing they can do about it. So I think that is a key tactic to taking down Kai'Sa and even Master Yi. So Candlelit Sanctum really helps tailor to organizing your plays and organizing your draw from invert timelines. Reaver's Row, like really, really great battlefield. You can conquer, you can score a point, right? And if there's something big that's going to contest those units on the battlefield, you can just safely, without any downside, just move back. Yes, they gain a point, but you can set up a big play for the next turn, and we have some big plays. So going into the main bulk of the deck, we are running 1 Annie Stubborn. There are pieces in the deck, Ride the Wind and invert timelines, and maybe some cards that we're going to be sideboarding that we need to get. And Annie is just a really great card at like picking out a spell, something to shift the tide of the game in your favor, right? And it's very situational. Maybe you just need to grab a cleave to move in and score the last point, with a big move. Sometimes you need invert timelines to destroy their hand. Sometimes you need a stack deck to kind of look for other things. And Annie does a great job of that. Yeah, it's a little expensive, 4 and a power for only a 3 might unit, but the upside of grabbing whatever you want from your trash of course, a spell, is really good. Stack Deck, one of the better purple cards in the color purple, for 1 at action speed. So you can also play it on your opponent's turn, which is really cool. Not many people do that. People just usually play it on their turn. But you can, especially with like Annie's Legend ability, right? Because you've ready 2 runes. If you have other big plays to do, right? If you want to spend that 4 mana or committing to a Pouty Poro and Legion affecting into a Noxus Hopeful, right? Then you ready 2 runes, and then you can play your stack deck on your opponent's turn when they move into a battlefield or when they play a card. So that's really good. Yeah, looking at the top 3 cards of your main deck and putting one of them to your hand and then recycling the rest, really good. Like I said, we really want to tailor to what we need for a big invert timelines play, and this really helps it. Cleave, obviously, you know, it's so good. It's just so good, right? 3 Assault, especially in the meta where, you know, Master Yi is like holding on to battlefields, and even Kaisa with Ravenbloom Student or a Darius, you know, that extra 3 Assault is just really good. And Allegiance well with Noxus Hopeful because it's a really cheap card to play against it. You know, your Pouty Poro becomes a 5 might unit. Your Vi becomes a 6 might unit. Even your Traveling Merchant becomes a 5 might unit, so it's really good. Gust, not a card that's been played a lot, surprisingly, when people run purple. But this card, I think Gust and Rebuke are such strong cards, right? I didn't put... Rebuke didn't make the cut for this deck. Maybe I can organize my sideboard differently so I can pop some in there. However, I think for as of right now... Oh, wait, no, I did put Rebuke in the sideboard. Yeah, that's correct. But, you know... For 1 energy at reaction speed, return a unit to a battlefield with 3 might or less to its owner hand. You know, so we have things to take care of the bigger units from our opponent, right? You know, your Kaisas, your Dariuses, and so forth, right? But for those tiny units, we don't really want to waste our spells and or removal and or showdowns with our units. So what we do is we gust the small units into our opponent's hand and then cast invert timelines so that they discard it, so we don't have to worry about those pesky little tiny units scoring points here and there. Traveling Merchant, an important card to the deck. You know, we really want to set up our hand for a good invert timelines, and then pulling into our Vi and our Ride the Wind big swing turn plays. You know, when it moves, discard and then draw 1. So even if they want to Hex Tech Ray it down, or if they're going to win a battle, if we need to draw into our deck, this effect happens before any of that. So really, really good. Vi, one of the bigger combo parts of the deck. Vi, 2 runes, 2 energy, 1 power for 3 might with a ganking ability, which is really strong in this deck for its setup with Ride the Wind. And recycle 1 from your trash, give me +1 might this turn. And that's for every, and it's like you can do your whole entire trash and just give it like 10 might really easily. And then in combination, right, with Ride the Wind, right, so it's at the battlefield or at your base, right, you buff up Vi up to maybe 10 cards ideally, or 9 or 8. Even then it's really good. So, you know, minimum like 12, 11, 10 might, right? You swing into the battlefield, you're more than likely going to take it from them. And then you Ride the Wind. You move a friendly unit and ready it for 2 energy and 1 power. So you move the Vi back into your base, or you can just gank it over into the other base. Yeah, just really good. Really, really, really good. There's so many things. It makes Vi really good because that effect only happens for 1 turn, right? And then the next turn, obviously, you're not going to have any cards, maybe 1 or 2 for what you play in your trash for the effect to buff it. So you want to get as much use out of her ability as possible, and Ride the Wind tailors that very well. And think about the cost of it, right? 2 energy and a power. Vi is 2 energy and a power. That's only 4 and 2 power. That's really cheap, actually. You know, you can play this as early as like turn 4 if you really want to, you know, depending on your trash. So really, really good card. Tailors well for the big combo. It really like sweeps the board, right? Because there's just like not much your opponent can do when it comes to big things other than hard removal, which is just in the game, and you know we're gonna have to deal with that eventually. Pouty Poro, I feel like in the way you should be constructing decks, right? If you have Poros, you should just play them, right, within your colors. I opted for the Pouty Poro because the deflect keyword is much stronger than the vision one. Even though this deck is tailored to kind of like setting up big turns, that deflect cost is really, really good. for us, like obviously it sucks for your opponent, but for I feel like when you're making a deck, you'll need at least like 9 2-might 2-cost units, right? So we were running Traveling Merchant, we're running Pouty Poro for the defect cost, and the other one is the wait, where is it? Oh, 6. Never mind. And yeah, honestly, like I made a shirt about this. Like this Pouty Poro is probably the best Poro because of the deflectability. 2 for 2, very clean. Really annoying for your opponent to get rid of with spells. They're gonna have to commit to a showdown in order to take care of it. We already talked about Ride the Wind being a really big combo piece for Vi. You know, 2 in a power, move a friendly unit and ready it. Like, it's just really good. And it makes this deck very flexible, very mobile, and really aggressive. Legion Rearguard. So the reason I put this card in the deck is because, you know, late game, if you have 2 in your hand, right, and you're at 6 points, you can accelerate them both, or even mid game, and you can double conquer, right? But with this deck, we are discarding a lot with invert timelines, obviously with the traveling merchant moving around. So sometimes there has to be cards in your hand that you don't mind getting rid of, mainly to feed Rasa, which we'll talk about right now. So 10 energy and 1 power for 6 might. I cost 1 less for each card in your trash. So if you have 10 cards in your trash, it costs only 1 power. That's really good, you know. You can go very wide very fast, which you'll see in the gameplay. So with that, Rasa being in the deck, you know, you need some like cheaper units that you don't mind losing, and that's why we put so many, right? We have, you know, 3, 6, 9 2-cost 2-might units. You know, it's good to go wide, right? And we have plenty of ways to remove it with Vi and some Rasas, and even some sideboard mechanics that we're going to get into in a little bit. So yeah, that's why Legion Regards here. It's still a good card. You know, you can accelerate if you want to be a little more aggressive, score that last point. If you're holding or score double conquer, so it's still a good card and just, you know, a solid cheap 2-might unit. Next is Fight or Flight. Now I like to use this actually more defensively, right? Like if you're holding onto a battlefield, I would suggest hiding it. Or, you know, because of Annie's legend ability being so cool, you know, you can play out all your cards, you can ready the 2 runes from the effect of Annie, and you can play as action speed. So, you know, if you're holding to a battlefield and a unit, an enemy unit comes in, you could play it, right? There's so many things that you can play from the legend ability on your opponent's turn, because we tailored it to run around like spells with 2 or less, or maybe 2 and a power. Other than the next spell, Void Seeker. So this is primarily in there for Kaisa, right? This targets Kaisa with the 4 damage really easily with 4 might, which Kaisa has, and 3 and a power. It does get hit by Defy, but honestly, like 65% of the spells in the game literally get hit by Defy. So that's just something that we can't really deal with, right? So we just have to, sometimes if they have it, they have it. But, you know, the ability to do 4 damage and draw a card is really good. If you save a rune at the end of your turn, right, and you're ready to, you can play this on your opponent's turn, obviously, with maximizing your resource management by playing as much as you can. So very, very, very good. Synergizes with the legend ability quite strongly. Invert Timelines, the bread and butter of this deck. So the point is, like, get your opponent really comfortable with drawing cards, right? You want to pop this at the perfect time, right? That's the only difficult thing with running this deck, is that your play on invert timelines is crucial, right? It's okay to discard your cards. It's all right. We can grab spells with our any chosen champion, right? It feeds Rasa to being cheaper if we pull it. You know, we have cheap units in Legion Rearguard that we could accelerate. And then when we have the Vi and Ride the Wind combo with that might on board, it is very hard for your opponent to beat that with a fresh hand that they haven't been thinking about over and over again, right? So as they're drawing, especially Kaisa or any other type of deck that like digs deep into their deck, as they're drawing, they're setting up plays in their head. When they see invert timelines, those plays go bye-bye. They just go away, and they have 4 cards in hand that they have to deal with, and they have to deal with your board state at that point. So going wide is actually generally really good. And also a little tall with some units like in Rasa and stuff. They get big, Vi gets big. So your opponent can only deal with one or the other, right? Either a board state that goes wide, or a board state with like a really big dude like Vi for that one turn. And this deck does both. So there's not much they could do. It's either they take care of one situation or the other, which pushes us ahead. Sorry guys, I had too much coffee this morning, which puts us ahead. So that's why I like this deck, because it's very versatile, right? Like you can either pick to go big or go wide, or tall rather. So that's really good card. Noxus Hopeful is just really good. We're playing a bunch of cheap stuff. So, you know, a 4-might unit for 2 energy cheaper is just really, really strong. Helps us go wide. 4-might is to be contested with a lot of units out there. And if you throw a cleave on there, it becomes a 7-might unit going into a battlefield. Really, really strong. Talking about Kaisa, if it's so good, just put it in the deck. Like, if you have red, like, why not? Like, honestly, like, it doesn't hurt, right? So for 4 energy, 4 might, we're all very familiar with this crazy card. Accelerate for energy and a power, and when I conquer, draw 1. That's why Reaver's Row in this. You know, if it moves into Reaver's Row and gets contested from an enemy unit, you can easily just save your Kaisa. And not even worrying about it. Also, the other thing I wanted to mention, I forgot to, with Gust, right? If your opponent is targeting your Vi, which is like a big part of your sweep turn, right, from your combo, you can Gust it into your hand to save it. So you can use this defensively and offensively and play into invert timelines on your opponent's turn. Playing Gust on your opponent's turn and then invert timelines. That's being the offensive part. And defensively by saving your Vi or anything crucial that you need on your board, right? You can even Gust your Annie, right, back into your hand, play it again, get another spell card. Really, really, really strong. It has some versatility that not a lot of people think about. And of course, we talked about Rasa, right? Just good card, you know, 4 power and 6 might. You know, if you can get 10 cards into your trash, which with this deck is very easy. Playing a power 6 might is just like a lot of pressure on your opponent that they have to deal with. And remember, they're only going to have 4 cards in hand when you play invert timelines. So there's only so much that they could do, right? Now taking a quick look at the sideboard, we're running 2 Hextech Rays to take care of those pesky Sunlit Guardians. Anything under 3 might really. And also it tailors well with the Anti-Legend ability. So you ready 2 runes, and then you can play Hextech Ray pretty much always, just as long as you have it in your hand, which is really strong. We're running some Rebukes to take care of those big units that Gust doesn't touch. So if we go against a set, if we go against a Volley Bear, you know, we switch out 2 Gust for 2 Rebukes to make sure that they're popping them into the hand, so we can play invert timeline so they can discard those cards. Fading Memories, one of the most underutilized removals, in my opinion, in the game. For 4 energy and 1 power, give a unit at a battlefield or a gear temporary, right? So this is in the side deck, again, to deal with those big threats, and also gear removal, right? If we're going against those Dazzling Aurora decks, this is in there. So it has like dual purposes, which is really cool, which is why I think it's such a fantastic removal and such a fantastic sideboard card. And lastly, we also are running 2 Dariuses to be switched out with 2 Kaisas, just in case for the mirror matchup, because they are running Dariuses, right? So we want to contest those Dariuses. You put a cleave on here, it becomes a 10 might unit, and it gets readied from the static Legion readying ability that it has. So that is the deck list. Definitely try it out, guys. The deck list is in the description. The gameplay is coming up. Thank you guys so much for watching. I appreciate support. I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I'll catch you on the next one. Peace. What is going up, guys? A little bit of gameplay and commentary. Today we are fighting against a Lee Sin with our Annie deck. The battlefields are Monastery of Hirana and Candlelit Sanctum. Our hand's looking pretty good, so I kept it. We have Invert Timelines, a Stacked Deck, a Wandering Merchant, and a Void Seeker. So that Stacked Deck, really important into grabbing what we need, playing them, and then Invert Timelines to punish our opponent's hand a little bit. Lee Sin will be going first. So he taps his 2 runes, plays his Pit Rookie, really strong, turn 1 for Lee Sin. Things I have to watch out are Udyr. Obviously, Udyr is really strong. So I draw a Pouty Poro, which is really good. Gives me a lot of things to do, actually. So I'll play a stack deck. I get my look at the top 3 cards. I got to Ride the Wind, a Void Seeker, and another stack deck. Now, obviously, maybe a stacked deck is really maybe the better choice, but I just wanted to get the pieces in my hand. And also, even if I drew a Vi, that'd be great. But even if I did invert timelines, remember I always have the Annie to grab that Ride the Wind from my trash. So that's not a terrible thing to discard, because discarding ensures that you can play it later with a setup from Annie. So I play my stack deck. I play my Pouty Poro. I accidentally recycled a rune when I was trying to ready from Annie's effect, and then I pass the turn. So he uses his Lee Sin's legend ability to buff a Pit Rookie. He's probably going to move in, more than likely. Yep, here Monastery of Harana, more than likely to spend the buff in order to draw a card. So passes the turn back to me. I have a Gust, which is something I could easily have done. So I want to see before I do anything with moving into Candlelit Sanctum with my Poro. To see the top 2 cards of, well, I did that wrong because the battlefield happens first. So, Candlelit Sanctum, I saw a Pouty Poro and a Traveling Merchant, one of which is in the battlefield and one of which is my hand. So, I don't need those cards drawing into or from invert timelines, right? So I just recycle them. They're cards I don't need. That's why I really like this battlefield. It gives you a lot of information, right, to set up your plays. I then play the invert timelines because I didn't need those cards. My opponent, I believe, discarded 5 cards, right? And again, the Ride the Wind, which is a big piece. No, he had 6 cards. He had 6 cards in the hand, which punishes him a lot, makes him down to 4. And those cards he'll never see again because Lee Sin doesn't do any resurgence or plays around with the trash. So I do discard. I draw a Kaisa, I draw a Rasa, and I draw 2 Noxus Hopefuls, which is really, really good. So Rasa is being playable turn by turn, and also that Ride the Wind in the trash. Remember, it can always be picked up with the Annie. So I pass over the turn to my opponent. He draws his card. He plays a Sithra. Sithra is a really great card, especially with the Monastery of Harana battlefield. He plays his Pit Rookie. So if only Cythria could get as many buffs as Lee Sin could, that would be so good, right? I think that would be a better card. It'd be fair. But still, it's just he wanted to go a little wide there, it seemed like. So he plays his Pit Rookie, his Cythria buffs itself. Taps into his Lee Sin. Obviously, since I inverted timelines, he wants to draw a little more cards. So putting buffs onto units, moving in there, spending the buff, drawing a card really helps the deck progress on his side. Really great tactic. Passes the turn over to me. I draw my Vi, so I got my combo already set up. Potentially, just as long as I play my Vi right onto the battle, onto my base, and it doesn't get touched. Then I can play my Annie Chosen Champion whenever I want to grab that Ride the Wind and swing with a big combo if the battlefields are just full with units or full with tall dudes. So I decided to accelerate my Kaisa because it's just a good turn. And then I draw a card from the Conquer. And then I get a Fight or Flight from the draw from Kaisa. I then pass the turn, but before that, I do decide to move the Poro back into base, which is something really strong. I think that's something in gameplay, a lot of people are starting to understand, which is really good. You don't want a unit just sitting at a base if you know they're just gonna get taken care of. Save your units, right? I know that he's gonna move in and contest that battlefield if I don't do anything about it, right? Because it's a cheap point, right? Destroys one of my unit and it scores him, just scores him a point. So instead of, he decides to move into the Monastery of Harana, trying to take care of my Kaisa. He does have full runes, so he could probably do a lot of things. Didn't seem like it though, so I decided to fight or flight the Kaisa back. Now, I could have fight or flight one of his units back, right, and contest and win the showdown. However, I wanted to utilize Kaisa's ability more than once. You know, that Concrete drawing a card is really strong, so I decided to save my Kaisa. And if that battlefield gets too big, remember I'm setting up for a big Vi play with Ride the Wind in the future, so that's always one thing that makes like you a better player, right, is that you thinking 2 turns ahead of time. Yeah, you know, not only just dealing with the board state as is this turn, but you know, plan out your turns, and that makes the difference between winning games and just losing games, honestly. So he plays his Wizened Elder, gets a buff on it, and gets another +1. That battlefield is looking a little scary, but like I said before, you know, not too worried about it because I have a big swing turn with Vi. I draw a Cleave, which is really good. I decide to, at this point, I believe, move in with with the Kaisa to Candlelit Sanctum. You know, that's the reason I withdrew it with Fight or Flight, is so I can also get my information. You know, I got a stack deck, I got a Powdery Poro. Obviously, the stack deck is the better choice in the situation. I decide to recycle the Poro back into the bottom of my deck. Right, and I'll put the stack deck on top, stacking my deck. Score point from the Kaisa, draw a card, drawing the stack deck, which is really cool. That's why that works very well. So you get to see what you want to draw first, and then I play the stack deck, looking at the top 3 cards of my deck and grabbing one of them. I also, at this point, have like quite a few things in my graveyard, so that Rasa is being even more viable to play. So I decide to, from all of them, pick up a Cleave because I want to contest that battlefield. And also it makes me able to, you know, play Noxus Hopefuls this turn. Yep. Oh, so I decided to commit to a Rasa. I believe there was 8 cards in my trash, right? So 2 and a power. And then Legion ability, obviously, and Legion ability. So there you go, guys. You know, going wide really fast because things get so cheap. Rasa is a fairly big unit with 6 smite. You know, throw a Cleave on there, it becomes 9. Just goes to show you have 2 possibilities, right? There's not only one tactic. You can be aggressive, you can be a little more controlling, you can go wide, and you can go tall. So yeah, this deck can do it all pretty much. So he decides to tap 6 runes, and okay, yeah, so he accelerates his Misfortune. Yeah, the Misfortune's a strong card. He has enough to buff it still, add 6 might to it, and contest the Candlelit Sanctum. You can even do that right now without buffing, but you know, buffing a unit's always safe. The one thing I would have considered for him is actually moving back. I know he wants to hold the battlefield to score points, but judging by his hand size, which I believe is only 2 or 3 cards, I would have moved some units back from the Monastery of Harana, right? And then try and contest it, spending some buffs to draw some cards. But I don't know, I think maybe in the long run holding that battlefield with as much as you can is better, because technically he would be ahead right now by contesting. Exactly, so now we're tied up. Moves in his Misfortune, Candlelit Sanctum triggers. He then also decides to fortify his position and moving in another unit to the battlefield that he conquered with Misfortune. So switching back to my turn, I got some things I could do. I'm feeling pretty comfortable. I play a Rasa for 1 power, float a mana, obviously. I'm starting to set up my turn with Vi, so I decided to play my Vi. I've only spent a couple of runes, and honestly, I played 2 really good units. So really strong. Looking at the one battlefield, 6 and 9 might, so I can easily assault my way over there. With the Noxus Hopefuls and the Rasa having 8 might, would stick there with the 2 Noxus Hopefuls, depending on what he wants to clean up. Making a little space here because there's just so much stuff on my base. I then decide, because like, okay, I want to do my Ride the Wind swing turn play, and I play my Annie, and then from my trash I will grab my Ride the Wind. So there you go, guys. Even though if you're discarding some cards like the Key Point and Ride the Wind, or maybe some other cards, right, you can always grab it with Annie, and you can also gust Annie back into your hand, grab it again, play another Invert Timelines. Really good, like, you know, resurgence from the deck. So I move in from the trash. I'm sorry, research from the trash. So I move in with my Rasa and my 2 Noxus Hopefuls. On the battlefield, we have 14 might opposed to his 9. 6 and 9. Yep, exactly. So he'll probably more than likely kill my Rasa, leaving my 2 4 or Noxus Hopefuls onto the battlefield. Doesn't have enough to kill another Noxus Hopeful, which is really good for me. So yeah, Rasa goes, and then the Misfortune and the the Pit Rookie will, I'm sorry, I couldn't really see. The Pit Rookie will die. They'll go to the trash, and I'll be able to conquer. Candlelit Sanctum triggers. So I'm struggling there a little bit, trying to look at the top 2 cards of my deck from Candlelit Sanctum's effect after Conquer. I look at Vi, and I look at Fight or Flight. I decide Fight or Flight just to make sure that I'm not losing important pieces, or just to kind of control his end of the game as well, pushing stuff back if need be. Score a point, obviously, and I switch the turn over to my opponent. So he decides to play another Misfortune. Sad life for me, because that Misfortune is really good because it does ready stuff up. But he's actually using it to ready the Runes, which is something that I completely forgot that you could do. So when it does move, you can ready anything. You can ready gears, you could ready your legend, units, runes. You know, it's actually pretty versatile. So really, that 1 rune cost for the Accelerate was actually free. You only have to really pay for the power as long as he moves it. Unfortunately for him, if he decides to move it, then, you know, I can always just Fight or Flight. So he decides to buff it using Lee Sin's Legend ability, giving it 6 might, which is really strong. So, yep, he moves into the battlefield with my 2 Noxus Hopefuls with his Misfortune. He decides to ready a rune, or he should have at least. Yep, there you go. He does that. And then he decides to play 2 for Discipline, which was like pretty well like read. You know, it was kind of like obvious. So, you know, we'll trade there, and the Candlelit Sanctum kind of just becomes an open battlefield, which is good for me. So I'm setting up my turn for a big Ride the Wind turn with Vi, which is why I wasn't too worried about it. And I also have like Annie Poro still there from the beginning of the game, and a Rasa on the base just to make sure. So he'll pass over the turn to me. I draw another Vi, which is pretty crazy. But I have 11 cards in my trash, so I recycle 11. I pump my Vi up to 14, right? And this is what I'm talking about. This makes Vi so mobile. I move into the battlefield here. I will score a point. Now I could have just easily scored another point with another unit onto the other battlefield, but I wanted to play Ride the Wind, just to kind of showcase what you could do in this situation, where if he had the other battlefield held on with a bunch of units, you know, 14 might is hard to contest with. It readies up the Vi, right? And I can gank over or move over there because it does have ganking, and just Ride the Wind in general, just moves it wherever you want to. So yeah, really strong play. So easily with 1 card, because the 1 shutdown will happen, it'll heal back up, then you can gank her over, right? And then, yeah, just incredibly strong. It could easily conquer both battlefields. So I conquered both battlefields, right, with Vi, and I decide to fortify my positions with a Rasa and a Poro onto the other battlefield, and I'll move in my Annie Darkchild with a the Vi. It will go down to 3 might again, but just as a little Insurance. I decided to play the Vi at base, and at this point, there's really nothing he could do. He's got nothing readied, and he kind of just concedes from here. So yeah, that's the gameplay, guys. Definitely try it out. It is a cool deck, and it is a lot of fun. You know, I believe it is a strong contester to beat those Kai'Sa and Master Yi decks. Thanks so much for watching. I appreciate support. I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I'll catch you on the next one. Peace.